I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness, a first responder mental health podcast hosted by me, Erin Jane, where we have conversations about what it's like to perform a first responder role and the mental health challenges that can accompany it. Yeah. So okay, so you're extricated from, that crazy world. And obviously get to sort of go back to the life of Matt Pitcher. Like, tell me what that was like in terms of like the adjustment factor, not only to your private life, but going back to being like a quote unquote normal copper after that. Like, where do you even begin?
So it was not easy, obviously.
Besides showering, it's like high on that list.
So I literally, I pulled up to the driveway at my house, and I sat in my car for a minute. I don't even know how to explain like your thought process. Like part of you doesn't believe it's over.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then like technically, it feels like it's been 3 years because of both cases, right?
Yeah.
It just was not around that much, and it was actually hard walking through the front door. As dumb as that sounds.
No, it doesn't sound dumb at all. Complete overwhelm, like, would make sense.
But I had text my wife too that hey, I'm about to come inside. Don't get near me. I'm going straight up to the shower. I'll be out in 20 hours.
Oh,
And I did. I think I was in the shower for over an hour.
yeah.
And then caved, um, and then got very, very sick. I think my body was shutting down at that. Like I was on complete exhaustion at that point and
Yeah.
mentally done. Uh, so they told me not to come into work for a few days after that. And then I got
How
called
kind
into a
of
meeting.
them.
Yeah. Well, actually, and I will give them credit. The second case, they did the best they could. They tried to do right by me.
Okay.
Like so I got called into a meeting then a few days later, and I go up, and they say, after this meeting, we don't expect to see you again for a month. So that was very nice. And
Yeah.
then they said, also, we can't mandate it, but we really, really want you to go see a psychologist, and we have her information, and we've arranged for you to have 15 appointments with her.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So this I'm loving. This sounds,
and
a
again,
little
they were
more like
trying
it
to do
should.
the right thing.
Yeah.
She was awful, but that's
Oh
a different story.
no. Are you
That's not what I wanna
serious?
get. Yeah. Um,
I mean,
so
to be sort of debriefing and trying to work with someone who's just come out of what you've come out of, I would think they
and
really need to be a specialized kind of person.
you're exactly right. That was very unfair of me to say she was awful. She was not prepared for my situation. Um, and part of it's on me too, because, and I guarantee you've heard this before, law enforcement is scared to death. You get labeled as PTSD, you lose your job.
Yeah.
You can't carry a gun, and you're in trouble.
Yeah.
That's whether it's true or false. That is
Yeah.
definitely the
Yeah.
thought process.
Yeah.
And I'll go into that in a minute. But so they give me a month off. They line me up with that. Um, what else was it? Oh, and they say, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be now?
Free kick.
And they let me. Yeah, so that was really cool because I went back to DEA to task force with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was going to be good mentally, and that went forward. I had issues, which sucked. But so I take a month off. We actually went to the beach, readjusted, got our family life back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the greatest moments probably of my life, just because you go from this one atmosphere, and it's like just overwhelming joy to be with your family and all of that.
Yeah.
Um,
And probably just in all its like simplicity, like waking up in
yeah,
your own bed, watching your kid play, like all of just the small things that people can take for granted.
and I don't know why. Like, yes, I woke up and wouldn't remember where I was. You go, am I in the apartment? And
Yeah.
and it's funny because so in the apartment, if I didn't have other people in the apartment with me, I would sleep under the window in the living room because I thought if people were going to shoot up the apartment, that's actually probably where the bullets wouldn't hit is right there. It'd be higher and then maybe down or anything like that. So that was kind of
Mm.
my thinking. So I remember I'd wake up a couple times and feel if I was beside the window or not.
Yeah.
Uh, it's weird stuff. But some of the mental health stuff, like when I first got out, didn't set in yet. So that was kind of what was nice. Like I didn't have some of the issues that I developed a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Uh, so I really was focused on the family during
Mhm.
that. Um, and then I went and saw the psychologist for the first time. And first meeting with her, you know, well, why are you here? Tell me about how you feel. Is there anything you think you're suffering from? And I tried to be honest at first, and I was like, I do feel I'm having trouble with paranoia. Um, it's gotten kind of bad. And she goes, well, why do you think that is? And I said, well, I've worked these two deep cover cases, and there's a lot of people still out and about uh, that if they ever knew who I was, that they would not want me alive. And her response was, well, it sounds like you should be paranoid. And it's
Oh,
like, all right, well, this is no into this. And that one comment just ended
yeah.
it for me.
Yeah. You're like,
Uh,
you've lost me there.
yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
remember a couple sessions later, she asked me to bring my wife in, bring Retta in. And I prepped Retta ahead of time before going in. I was like, you know, obviously, if we have things we got to work out, we'll work it out. But we got to be real careful. This is where, if she thinks I have PTSD or anything like that, comes my job. So, if you can keep it together while we're there. And then she cried within 5 seconds of being in there. She's
There's-
totally fine. I was talking about it. Uh, he's like, that lady just brought it out. Yeah, I mean, nothing was gained from those sessions at all. So that was,
Fortunate.
and it, again, part of it may have been on me. Like, I'm not going to blame lady. Number one, obviously, it's a very unique situation, um, and not something that you're usually going to deal with ever. So for her not to have the knowledge in there is not her fault. Uh,
No, but also, if your department are trying to do the right thing, the least that they should be doing is going, okay, so who is the most appropriate person? Like, not just someone with like stamped freaking therapist on their certificate. Like,
yeah,
a
and they
little
have
more
done
nuanced
a lot.
than that.
Yeah, and they have done a lot since then to try to set that up better.
Hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
very pleased about that.
Yeah. And so,
But
and then you said you got like really sort of sick afterwards. Like, s-
yeah, so almost immediately, like my system just tanked,
yeah.
and then some of the stuff started setting in after that, like dealing with nightmares a lot, um, and then getting triggered back into the cases, like anything from a stupid song putting you right back there, a smell, um, even gestures. Sometimes it's the weird, like it's hard to explain.
Yeah,
Uh,
that makes sense.
but and then I shut down talking about the cases completely. Like I just could not talk about it. And it was very, very visual. Uh, where and every once in a while it'll still happen to me, but not much.
Hmm.
But it's almost like somebody turned it down to 20 degrees. Like it's just my body goes right back into the case. And
Yeah.
this it's weird though, because this time the fear becomes much more than it was when I was actually in it. Uh, like my teeth will start to chatter, just and I'll shake. It's just
Yeah.
very
But
weird.
but again,
Uh,
though, when you were in it, you knew that your life was on the line. So you're
yeah,
actually, I guess, having the ability to respond physiologically in a natural way that you had to like deny yourself when you were in front of.
I assume something's got to be adrenaline dumping, kind of keeps it a little even keel. Would be a guess. I have no idea, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Uh, so I went about a month and a half afterwards. I went for my yearly physical with my primary care,
Hmm.
and I'd always had fine blood pressure, no issues whatsoever, decent shape, and I'm still in decent shape. Which took my blood pressure. It was like 200 over 110, 115, which
Jesus.
is obviously beyond horrendous
Yeah.
and shocked her. And she's just like, "What the hell are you doing?" Said, "I don't
Yeah.
know." Um, and so I got put on medication, uh, and I could never we could get it down to 150s, 140s over the 90s, and that's the
Mhm.
best we could get it, which is not great, but at least that's livable.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's funny because it was like that up until I had to retire. But
Yeah.
then things leading up to my retirement, like so part of the issue then, so I went to the DEA task force HIDA,
Mhm.
which is what always enjoyed that, right? Working that kind of case and still doing some undercover work and all that. I did not get the fulfillment out of it anymore. Um, it's like I couldn't get grounded. Like I was constantly living back in those other cases. Uh, couldn't get away from it and wasn't finding satisfaction in the work anymore.
Mhm.
But you know, it's like law enforcement's all I know. So I think I probably should have left after the second case. In all reality, like I was mentally exhausted. Obviously, I was averaging 1 to 2 hours of sleep a night. Um, I mean, I was headed down obviously an extremely bad road.
And
Um,
as well, like, you've spent, like, the majority of 3 years in states of, paranoia, hypervigilance, like your cortisol levels would have just been jacked for like such an extended period of time. And then that has like those health and the physiological like implications, like you're saying, with your blood pressure, not being able to sleep. They can, hazard a guess, like some, significant traumas going on there for you with you're getting the flashbacks and the nightmares and everything like that. Like you put you put yourself through a hell of a lot to do what you did.
yeah, and man, you don't realize it so much at the time either. It catches up to you later, and that's funny because uh, even with patrol, I didn't have the most normal patrol career either. Um, and it's funny how things at the time don't bother you as much, right? Like I
Yeah.
always have told Retta, you know, I had a 3-year-old that was killed in a drive-by shooting when I was on patrol that I responded to. And you go and you handle things, and I always called it robot mode. Like there's no emotion when you're handling it at all. Uh, you just get A, B, and C done. Like that's what your brain
Yeah.
focuses on. And then later, all of a sudden, it's like, holy shit, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that professional compartmentalization or um not like desensitization, but in order to do our jobs. Yeah, that there has to be a certain level of it, but you need to know how to switch back into it and process it. Otherwise, it gets stuck and
gets
leads
bad.
to all kinds of
Yeah,
traumas. Yeah.
and that's where I went wrong. I did not. Uh,
Yeah.
and so the end of 2014, October 2014, I had to leave Charlotte. The first case, undercover case, had ended. Um, I had gotten word, like I was burned at that point with that case.
Okay.
Um, I had gotten word that certain people wanted me gone, either physically or dead. Like they did not want me in Charlotte anymore. And these were people that um, definitely had significant power over my life.
They in from the criminal world or from
Well, put it this
right.
way. So the day after the mayor was arrested, I was called in to do a P test for the first time in my career since being hired. A couple of days after that, I was called in to do a P test again. And a couple of days after that, I was called in to do a P test again.
So the
Unfortunately, I didn't
mayor had
fail
some
any of those P
friends
tests.
on the department.
The mayor happened to be in the mayor's office at the time of his arrest, happened to be the chief of police. The chief of police was informed by the FBI that this was my case and my doing. Uh,
Ah,
when I had when I had finished my part in the case, my sergeant and I met with the FBI, and they said, "You know how many awards you're going to get for this and everything else." And I said, "I don't want anything." I said, "If I have to testify for court as
yeah.
my job, I will do
This,
it." I
yeah.
said, "But this is federal. Most time it doesn't go to court." Uh,
Really,
I said, "If I don't have to be discovered, nobody can know it was me. This will be really,
yeah.
really bad for me if it comes out." Uh, And so apparently that was
Jesus.
forgotten about when the mayor was arrested.
That's
Uh, so I had a close friend. A couple things happened. So there
mm,
was that. Then the second case, all of a sudden there was a post on Facebook um, referencing my UC name that, oh, this isn't a real person. This was an agent. So that means if we kill them, it's not killing a real person, right? Because they don't actually exist. Um, so obviously,
so break your
and come to
identities.
find out, somebody had somebody from my department supposedly had informed the groups that the undercover was an undercover and not a real person. So I all of a sudden mysteriously gotten dimed out in that case too a few years
Jesus
later.
Christ.
Um, I had a very
Then
close friend who was high up in my department who basically said, somebody's wanting you gone, and if you're not gone, it could get violent. So
I mean,
at
there's
that point,
organizational betrayal, and then there's fucking that.
yeah, it kind of
Christ.
sucked. Um, so we originally looked at moving to the islands. We looked at the islands and thought about that, but then did a bunch of reading in a very short amount of time.
Mhm.
Uh, and you basically have to send your kid to private school. It's not well received to send them to public school. And
Okay.
so private school prices are through the roof. So I was like, all right, that's not really that much of an option.
Yeah.
So I happened to have a friend down in the Keys. Or I didn't have a friend actually. It was more, well, he was my friend too, but he was more my brother's friend. He's in his grade. My brother had said, why don't you reach out to him? I think he's down there. So I
Mm,
found him on Facebook, got a message, and he helped me out tremendously.
yeah.
Um, and it's funny because I guess he would get calls all the time about people saying they're going to move to the Keys, but then they never do.
Yeah.
And so within 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we were down here. Like we had sold our house up
Wow.
there and were able to get a house down here in 2 to 3 weeks, which never happened. Getting a
That's
house down here is
crazy.
next to well, with a
Yeah.
rental. But getting a rental down here is next to impossible.
Mhm.
Uh, so we managed to do all that in a very, very short amount of time.
And was there, even though obviously, like, the circumstances from which you were forced to leave were fucking awful, like, was there a part of you that kind of experienced any kind of, like, relief just going, like, there's, like, a separation from all everything that kind of went on there, I can step back now?
Yeah, totally. Because so even after the cases, like couldn't go outside. Like I mean, I've had issues with that down. Like I've gotten much better now. But up there, I mean, also for good reason. I couldn't go out in public a lot because obviously there were still a lot of people out, no matter what, that would recognize me as somebody I wasn't. Like
Yeah.
after the case one time, and we'd gone out to eat with friends of ours, not in the city, outside of the city, and or actually the case may have still been going on because it may have been on a break. I may be wrong, or it may have been between the two cases. But anyway, we go out to eat, and I see someone walk in that would know immediately and that could really be a bad situation. So I had to sneak out and basically sit in the car until they all finished eating.
Oh,
uh,
Jesus.
so that's kind of, and I never ever would go to a mall.
Yeah.
Uh, like I just had to limit my outdoor contact at all.
Yeah.
So that was so moving down here. There was definitely oh I don't have to worry about that. That and everywhere you drive or anything like that, you're always like I worked a dead body. Oh I did a drug deal there. Uh,
Yep. Yep.
that kind of thing. So getting away from that. Of course, then we moved down here, and I said I was going to attend bar, right? That I was not going to go back into law enforcement. So then I get here, and the first thing I do is go back into law enforcement. Uh,
Oh, dear.
so I did that until I I knew I was majorly going downhill at this point, mental health wise.
Yeah.
Um, but you kind of you keep telling yourself things will get better, you'll do better. And I gotten to a point even where um, everything I did, I pictured the worst case scenario. We'd be doing something stupid like driving to school, and I'm picturing all the bad things that can happen between us getting to
Yeah.
school, grocery store, picturing all these bad, like every single thing.
Yeah.
It
Like
was
the catastrophizing type mentality.
yeah. So in May of 2022, I'd gotten COVID. Uh, immediately following COVID, I got shingles, and yeah, um, and basically, and then in August, I got an ear infection that went to the eyes and then went down into my lungs, and my lungs just shut down and wouldn't
Jesus.
work. Spent a week in the hospital on oxygen, couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, at that time, was told I'll never have lung function back again. Like it'll be very, very minor, and kept doing the what is it, the pulmonary function test, I think it's
Yeah.
called. Uh, and I would pass out during the test because I couldn't get the oxygen right. Had a sleep test done, and my oxygen levels at night. First of all, I would sleep less than an hour. My oxygen levels though would stay in the 60s, which is
Very
catastrophic,
low.
horrible.
Yeah.
Uh, so by December, it was obvious. It appeared obvious that I wouldn't be able to do law enforcement or that was over. So I retired then, and then starting about March, I started to see that following March. I started to see March of 2023.
Hmm.
I started to recover some. My workouts were actually going better.
Hmm.
Um, and also starting, one of the things that also started to help too is I started doing the podcast just before that.
Hmm.
And there was actually a slow progression on the way up helping me just by having done the podcast, forcing myself to talk about them. And then also getting the response back from the public that was
Hmm.
actually encouraging and not, you piece of crap, actually was
Yeah.
helped in a way that I never would have guessed. But
Yeah.
so starting in March, and I also during this time I went and talked to somebody. Um, Actually, it was a phone call because of where I live or
Uh,
Zoom, but um, and
What
got in
brought you
touch.
to that point to go, all right, it's
I
time.
I knew I was in trouble. Like at that point, um, with the lack of sleep, the like I mean, I literally um, couldn't even walk 200 yards, and no explanation as to why.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't want to believe things were, if things were going to continue on that track, I was going to be dead pretty soon. Um, like I mean, there's just no way around it.
Yeah.
Like, so I either had to just accept that my lungs were going to fail me, and the doctor had told me that I had zero immune. Like I had anything that was going to come around, I was going to get. Like I just had no immune system and
Yeah.
couldn't figure out why. And part of it was because you don't talk about that end of things with a doctor, so they don't know that. And I don't know if the doctors are necessarily trained to even think about that side.
Yeah.
But after all this, I can say now it was 100% mental health.
Yeah.
Um, like between the not sleeping and you can't live in a constant state of paranoia and picturing the worst constantly. Like there's no way you can do it.
Mm.
Um,
Well, as well as
so I also
sleep is
got
actually something that your body needs. Like if you do
yeah
not sleep, you will die. Like it's how your memories get put from like short term into long term memory. It's how your body heals itself. It's all of the things. And if you're just in that constant state of like, chronically fatigued from sleeping maybe an hour a night, like yeah, your body just sounds like it was ready to shut down on you.
it definitely was, no question about it. Um, and so and then I also got um, talked to a support group and all that, which was huge.
Yeah.
And it was all law enforcement.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
and so now uh, I am no longer on blood pressure medication. My blood pressure is around 117 over 70 some,
Yeah.
which is insane. Um, and I sleep great.
It's amazing what retirement can do for people.
Exactly. Now I mean, obviously, this like it's not something that like it's funny because I kind of almost from like, I have some friends that were or are alcoholics,
Mhm.
and it's like wow, in some ways there's some similarity, just because it's not something that ever goes like you're not just all of a sudden cured from PTSD or I guess
Yeah.
this is technically C PTSD.
Yeah.
Um,
It's complex. Yeah.
yeah. So it's not that you just all of a sudden recover. Oh, I can live a normal life, all that kind of stuff. uh, but like I'll still get nightmares once in a while. and there's still I have to work through things because you still have a tendency to,
Yep.
you know, almost expect the worst thing to happen.
Yep.
So you got but
It's learning to live with it, learning like how to manage it, learning appropriate coping mechanisms. And, I guess, and I hope it's not too much of a personal question. And if it is, that's okay, to answer it. But like, have you done EMDR or anything like that to help you sort of process some of
I
that stuff?
no, I have not at this point yet. Not that won't in the future, but
Mhm.
I haven't as of this time. Obviously, and I know sometimes I hate saying this because it's what everybody says, but you know, I we talked before that the mental health side has become a passion for me for other
Yeah.
officers.
Yeah.
Um, because of how like there's two aspects. One, depending on where you're a police officer, you need to get out of the line of work. Like this whole, 30-year, 25-year retirement to me is such crap. Um,
It's
like,
not, it's not sustainable anymore.
no, not even a little bit. Um, so I want to be an advocate, obviously, for that,
Mhm.
but also talking about it and knowing what you need to do to survive yourself to get through this. Like, for me, working out has become a huge benefit. I've
Mhm.
always enjoyed working out, but now that's, outside my family, that's like my number one priority. I'll call in sick to work somewhere before I miss a workout because I know it's that
Yeah.
important for me.
Yeah. No, and that's so understandable and in a very different way, but like that's sort of become my thing too. Like I ended up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning to facilitate it, 2 young kids. He's firefighter, so he's gone a lot of the time, got all the other shit going on. Um, unless I get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to get it done, it does not get done, and it's a priority. It is a priority, and it does always more for my mental health than it does for my physical health. So I completely
Oh yeah,
just
absolutely.
understand it in that respect. And when it,
That's
turns into, you start out and it becomes like a habit, and then the motivation turns into discipline. And then all of a sudden, you're like, this is just part of my life now, part of my lifestyle. It's not even like a conscious thought. You're just like, I'm working out. And that's it.
yep, 100%. So
Yeah, and I'm like a cranky bitch if I couldn't do workout in the morning. Because then I notice it about myself, like, I've upped my workouts because 'cause I'm like, "Man, I'm a bitch when it's time to work out." I'm like even on, like an active rest day, I'll, like, it's still, like, a 30-minute walk on the treadmill, and I think my body just got, like, so used to getting that, like, endorphin boost in the morning. I'm like, "Man, if I don't get that, I don't think anyone wants to be around me."
someone's gonna pay for this.
Oh my goodness. But so you've obviously like with, you worked out so that kind of thing, and then it's like really like the talk therapy or like whatever modality your therapist works within, and then like the law enforcement support group. It it sort of sounds like, and even like you're saying, like going on podcasts and it was like the A&E show and all that kind of thing. Like it's sort of from an outsider's perspective, it sounds like you getting to that point where you can share your experiences and in such like an in-depth way that you have with us today, like there's like a certain level of like catharsis that's kind of maybe healing you along your way as you share those experiences and kind of come to grips with like all of the stuff that you've done in your past that you're kind of like, I can talk about, but I'm like, oh, it's also like processing too.
Yeah, exactly. Because yeah, like if you bottle it up and you don't talk about it,
Yeah.
obviously it's still going to be replaying in your mind over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So 100%.
Yeah, makes sense. And talk to me about like your family life, sort of since you have retired and since almost like a pretty big sort of lifestyle shift in terms of going to the Keys. Um and like with your boy and everything like what's the vibe, I guess, in your family now that you're retired and working on your mental health and how has it been changed in that respect?
So obviously, it's so much better. One of the main reasons is, and obviously even before I retired, I was getting time with my family once I moved down here.
Yeah.
But if you keep living those cases in your head over and over, then you're not, and that's what I was having trouble with. I wasn't living with, like, I wasn't, even when I was having time with them, I wasn't with them. My brain was
Yeah.
still
You were
functioning
present, but not
elsewhere.
present. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like you can't figure out how to be present. Like, you want to be. It's not that you don't want to be, but you can't get your brain to go away from other things. Uh, and so now, like, I mean, I can actually be there, be present, and um, especially with my son who's 15 now. You know, it's a great timing
I was
just to
gonna
be able to sit
say,
with him
really
and have
like a
time.
good age for like a father-son, I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Matter of fact, we did a fundraiser on Sunday, and it was a barbecue fundraiser, and I smoked all the barbecue. Um, and then he helped me in the kitchen and stuff like that. And like, he and I were talking the whole time. We're in there. It's hard because I don't know if everybody will understand, but when you go from not actually being there to being in the moment, like, there's been a couple of things that I've noticed that have, number one, tell me I'm really on the right road, um, and tell me how much I was messing up before, but, on the bright side, where I've come. So the like my besides writing the book and doing podcasts and that kind of thing right now, my only job is delivering pizzas, which I know that sounds dumb, um,
I
but
love that for you so very much. I think that's great.
it is the greatest thing in the world. Like, I love it. But I'm so mad at myself that I didn't do that the
Yes.
minute I get down.
Yes.
See, not jokingly, I'm making the same amount of money or more, which is so dumbfounding. Working
Yes,
about
that might
half
that
the
might be a
hours.
blight on law enforcement more than pizza delivery.
I highly recommend it to all the
Yeah.
but there's 0 stress, and to finally deal with the stress that's already on my plate, like, from before, and not have new, like, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Uh, and my wife and I have talked about multiple times. I said, you know, and not just law enforcement, I think overall in general, this is why we're dying way younger than we should be, or having a lot of our lifestyle issues,
Mhm.
is the stress, like, what it does to you, like, what I can see in my body now compared to before is unreal.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No, and we had Matt and I had a conversation the other day, just sort of organizing this recording, and he was telling me about his pizza delivery, and it resonated because my hubby's a firefighter. He's been on the job 22 years now. And he's a captain and often upgraded to deputy. So there's that level of you got to be fucking on and making all the decisions and all that kind of thing. And I told him, like, how you are now delivering pizzas, and he was just like, fuck yes. Like, we talk about, like, when, or if we move to Australia one day, like after he retires, he just wants to do something that is like so completely inconsequential, like no stress, no one has like the propensity to die, and like literally all you have to make sure is that like this person gets their pizza from that place, and what just
exactly.
this like simple joy like there is in just doing something like that after having experiences and careers where it was life and death like every day.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. I know you may have actually, like, given my husband some inspiration, so I'll be
I'm glad.
letting you know in, like, I don't know, 7 to 10 years whether he's a pizza delivery driver in Australia.
Excellent.
Oh, out of control.
You can
Um,
compare to
oh my goodness. Ugh, but, and yeah, so you, have mentioned a couple of times since we've been talking that, yeah, obviously, you sharing your story, and it's so now like important to you to sort of just be like raising awareness for like mental health of in particular police officers and people who've done undercover work, as well as sort of like the broader first responder community, and going on podcasts and the TV shows, and you're very sort of
prolific on social media and Instagram, sharing stories and answering questions, which I absolutely love. And I think it's awesome because people would have random questions that they want to know. And then you've like mentioned the fact that like you're working on a book. Do you want to sort of like tell us a little bit about that too?
Sure. So, still somewhat in the early stages,
Mhm.
but yeah, I'm working on a memoir of my pretty much my entire law enforcement career.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's a main focus on the two undercover cases, and then as I refer to it, the aftermath. Um, and the mental health struggles and readjusting back into society in general,
Yeah.
and family. So I am super excited about it. I am getting help from a ghostwriter,
Yeah.
just because if I write it, I'm afraid it's going to sound like a police report, and I've been told they're not that exciting to read. Well, I don't like reading
I
them.
know. They're a little dry, we'll put it that way. If anyone's
Yeah, a little
never
bit.
read a police report, they're a little dry. Um, but no, I think that's brilliant. And as well, like, so much through our conversation, you've kind of, you've shared experience or something that's happened or, anything in that respect. And then you're kind of like, fuck me, in hindsight, had I known A, B, and C. And I guess sort of, you writing this memoir and sharing your experiences as well as like sharing the lessons learned along the way, in particular about like your mental health struggles, in particular about I was not fucking good at this point and I should have gotten help here, or I should have, been more prepared and had kind of like silly psychological training, like prior to being inserted into deep undercover, like all of those lessons that you've learned along the way. And it's all such like a wealth of knowledge that like you're going to be able to impart on people who are going to be in the position to read this book. So that's brilliant.
And I really, really hope so, because yes, that's definitely a large part of it is,
Hmm.
getting getting the word out there, and like officers have got to understand that don't be alone. It, we all call each other brother and sister. Well, number one, we need to live up to it, but number two, we got to believe that we do have brothers and sisters out there, and we need to learn to talk to each other and
Yeah.
um, not do this whole isolation on my own thing.
Yeah, very much so. And I think, it's something that you would have to be like comfortable doing and in like a really good uh, like mental health space because I've spoken to a lot of people. I've had the privilege to chat to a lot of people on this podcast, and you can see the toll that it takes on them every time they share their story and their experience and all that kind of thing. And so it's definitely something that you have to be in a good place about to be able to share it. But I think you'd even also be great, like, going around to different, like, police departments and stuff like that and, giving a presentation, and I think, like and especially, like, to piggyback off your book, like, I think that is something that you would be great at because you have this, like, natural sort of flair for storytelling, I think, and maybe goes all the way back to like your, prolific
My acting
acting
days.
days. Yeah. But like in hindsight, like I'm sure there are skills that you learned in that time that helped you in your undercover work and to, yeah, being now, come full circle sort of thing down the track, being able to share it in like this really comprehensive way that's going to be enticing for people to listen to and for them to gain knowledge and experience in a way that you never had that opportunity.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I hope so.
Yeah, really great. Well, I definitely team that in regards to you writing a book, and I think it would be awesome. So please, please keep me updated with that, and if and when you get to that point, love to have you on because I know we didn't sort of get to have much of a chat about um, your experiences when you were in the Monroe Sheriff's Department, and
Yeah.
I've taken up all of your time as it is. So yeah, so I'd love to have you on at some point so we could
Oh yeah.
discuss because I know that you had like handled sort of some really like interesting cases when you were in Monroe County. Uh, yeah, so if you'd be willing, I'd love to have you back on. We can discuss some other stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, I'd love to.
Cool. All right. So, first of all, thank you for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. And just, being open to sharing your story with us, because I think it's the whole purpose of this podcast is for first responders to come on and share stories and experiences, the good and the bad, and to talk about the mental health implications and things they've struggled with and ways they've found to help cope. So,
No, absolutely, and thank you for doing this because this is great, especially for all officers to get to talk about this and kind of so we can listen to each other a little bit.
exactly. No, that's so we normally finish the episodes by asking people two questions, and so the podcast is called "I Will Hold Space for Darkness," and it's sort of it comes from the fact that there is a lot of darkness that permeates our first responder roles, whether it's the darkness of people that we deal with, or the depths of humanity, or grief, death, all of the trauma, all of the above. So the first thing that I'd like to ask Matt is, what do you do to hold space for your darkness?
I know we talked about it a little bit, but obviously a support group, having people to talk to, I think is huge.
Yeah,
And then for me, definitely the workouts and you know having that ability to push it out there and clear your mind of everything when you're doing that kind of thing.
yeah,
Those two things are completely necessary to to get through it. So those are probably the two biggest ones.
yeah. Sounds like they were both really important outlets.
Yeah, 100%.
So thank you. And secondly, sort of what can someone do, and whether that is a friend or a spouse or anyone in your life, what can they do to support you in terms of you being able to hold space for your darkness?
I would say number one, don't be scared to call somebody out, kind of thing. Not in a bad way. I don't mean like, oh, you yeah, stop that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think we all start to see signs in other people, or in our friends, our close, our loved ones. Um, when things aren't going right, we all talk about the symptoms. Whether a big one for me is the disassociating myself. Like when you go to that bad place where you push everybody out. Um, so we see these signs. You can't be scared to call the person out on the signs and just get them to open up or see someone, or even the fact that somebody, like, they know that somebody else is seeing it may be enough to get them to kind of say, okay, let me take a step back and figure this out a little bit.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's one of the big ones. And then I think you'll hear me say it time and again. Getting them to get into like a support group, and I call them support groups, but just a group where they can talk and feel open talking, um, whatever that may be. But those are two of the biggest things. And then finding something as well. Like for me, we talked about the working out, but um, whether it be anything from that, from fishing, whatever it is that will take their mind completely to turn off is another thing. Help them find that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think, like you're saying, it is really important because, like you're saying, like if someone had sort of maybe called you out when you were in the depths of, going through and experiencing some of like your trauma and the stress, that goes along with that, like if either A, you're not ready to hear it, or B, you don't actually realize how you're presenting and how you're showing up. So for someone you value their opinion, or someone that you love and that you see all the time, to kind of go, are you okay? Because you snapped at our kid and you don't only talk to them like that, or you're treating me like shit. Are you aware of that? Or, hey, mate, like you're, getting on the gas a lot and you're kind of drinking a little bit more, and are you okay? Like, I think there is a lot of power in, even if they are resistant or they tell you to go fuck, or go fuck yourself or whatever, like like showing that level of care. I think you're right. I think it's really, really important for them to at least go, okay, even if they're not ready to hear it at that time, that's going to be the back of the head to go, okay, like I know that person's like seeing that I'm not right, and that's someone that I can go to for help. Yeah, true. I am ready.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Matt, we are going to wrap it up here. Thank you so very much for your time and being so open and sharing all of your experiences and the psychological impact that it's had. And I really wish you well with your book writing and your continued recovery and coping and just living with, with the complex PTSD. I wish you all the best.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Cheers. All right. This has been another episode of I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness, a first responder mental health podcast. I've been your host, Erin Jane. And as always, let me listen in a way you've never been heard. Cheers.
Hi guys, it's Erin Jane here. Firstly, thank you for listening to I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness. This podcast really is for you, the listener, and I hope you're finding as much value in listening to these conversations as I am in having them. If you'd like to offer any feedback, suggest a subject matter, are interested in being a podcast guest, or would like to get in contact to receive first responder life and wellness coaching services, please reach out. You can find me on Instagram at Erin Jane Coaching or my website, www.erinjanecoaching.com. I look forward to hearing from you and I'm so grateful to have you as part of this darkness community. Cheers.